Means of transport: diffusion, facilitated diffusion, passive symport and antiport, active transport. A diffusion. Diffusion is a passive process, which means no energy is used to make the molecules move. They have a natural kinetic energy. Diffusion is the net movement of molecules or ion from a region of their high concentration to the region of their lower concentration. Diffusion is responsible for the gaseous movement within the plant body. Diffusion rate are affected by gradient of concentration, permeability of the membrane, temperature and pressure. See, the liquid particle concentrated on one edge to another place, move from one area to another area. See, once inside the xylem, water is again free to move between the cells as well as through them. In younger roots, water enter directly into the xylem vessel and or tracheids. These are non-living conduits and so are part of the apoplast. Symplast and apoplast pathway of water and ion absorb and movement in roots. Facilitate diffusion. Large polar molecules such as glucose and amino acid cannot diffuse across the phospholipid bilayer. Also, ions such as sodium and calcium cannot pass. These molecules pass through protein channels. Instead, diffusion through this channel is called facilitated diffusion. See how molecule across the membrane facilitate diffusion. Molecules is to larger or charged or diffused on its own can diffuse if there is a specific transport protein channel. See, stop when concentration are equal inside and out, still diffuse. And facilitate diffusion. Movement of molecules is still passive, just like ordinary diffusion. The only difference is the molecule go through a protein channel instead of passing between the phospholipids. See, the cell membrane, the protein channel, the cell membrane containing for fluid mosaic model, the hydrophobic head and hydrophilic tail, the presence of the protein inclusion also is occur. Facilitate diffusion. The outside the cell, the membrane is there. The membrane is crossed and move the inner side. The transport protein and the transport molecule is transfer for inner membrane, inner side of the cell. Passive symport and antiport. Some carrier or transport protein allow diffusion only if two types of molecule move together. Symport, when both molecules cross the membrane in the same direction. Antiport, when both molecules cross the membrane is opposite direction. Uniport, when a molecule move across the membrane independent of other molecule. See, the facilitate diffusion, the uniport. A single molecule cross the unidirectional. Uniport means unidirectional, the same single way. A single molecule is crossed into the single way. Antiport, one molecule forward and the another one molecule is backward. That is called as a antiport. Same port, both molecule is transferred in the same direction. That's called as a same port. Active transport, uptake of dissolved minerals is done by active transport. Cell sap within the root has become more concentrated than the water in the soil, which create concentrating gradients. Active transport uses energy to pump molecules against a concentration gradient. Active transport is carried out by a membrane protein, hence different protein in the membrane play a major role in both active as well as passive transport. Pumps as protein that use energy to carry substances across the cell membrane. Transpiration pull, the flow of water upward through the xylem in plants. The attractive force between two unlike material is known as adhesion. The attractive force between the molecules of the particular liquid is known as cohesion. Most of the water is lost through the stomata in the leaves. This water loss through the evaporation is called transpiration. The transpiration, cohesion force and transpiration called as a transpiration pull. Water movement in leaf. See the cross section of the leaf material, the presence of palisade cells and stomatal pore and diffusion into the surrounding air, that's called present for parenchyma. This is the gaseous exchanging with the help of stomata, xylem and phloem cells. See the cross section of the cell, the mesophyll cell occurs, the xylem vessels and air space is presented, the water molecule through the enter the pores and guard cells and stomata is open. Translocation, the bulk movement of substance through the conduction of or vascular tissue of plants is called a translocation. The higher plants have highly specialized vascular tissues, that is called as a xylem and phloem. Xylem is associated with the translocation of mainly water, mineral salt, some organic nitrogen and hormones from root of the aerial part of the plants. The phloem translocate a variety of organic and inorganic solutes, mainly from the leaves to other part of the plants. The diagrammatic representation of mechanism of translocation. See, the root is absorbed by the sugars level, sieve tubes for metabolism and storage, water flow by osmosis, the phloem, the leaves, the sugar enter the sieve tubes, water flow the osmosis through high turgor pressure, that is called as a sigh. The sugar leaves sieve tubes, water flow the osmosis, tip of the stem, the sugar solution flow the regeneration of low turgor pressure and high turgor pressure. The phloem is downward direction, the water is always for the upward direction. Mass flow hypothesis, the translocation of sugar from the source of zinc in the cell of sucrose is converted into sugar is converted to sucrose. Sucrose move into the companion cell and then into the sieve tube cell by active transport. This process of loading produce a hypertonic condition in the phloem. Water is adjacent to xylem, move into the phloem by osmosis. As osmotic pressure build up, the phloem sap will move the areas of low pressure. At the sink, osmotic pressure get reduced to move the sucrose out of the phloem sap. In the cell, sucrose is converted to the cellulose. The sugar is removed from the phloem. So the osmotic pressure get decreased. The loss of solute pressure, a high water potential in the phloem. Water falls out, return eventually to the xylem.